I got all of that. I really nailed it. I really maximized the compression of the ball off the club face. Compression, that magic word that everybody wants you to get more of, is like the secret sauce of what's going to make you a better golfer. But what is compression exactly? How do you more fully compress one of these guys? Well, let's take a little deeper dive into it right after this and talk about some of the truths, the myths and misconceptions about compressing a golf ball. Don't go away. Hey, this is Steve from HitItLonger.com. I continue on my journey to hit the ball longer and straighter than ever before from tee to green. I hope that you'll join me by hitting the subscribe button down below. All right, so there's got to be at least, 10,000 videos on YouTube talking about compressing the ball. But what 99% of them talk about solely is how you've got to hold and lag the angle so that you can get more forward lean on the club shaft. Therefore, you can hit down on it more, drive it into the ground, and really compress the ball. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. All right, so I think the best way of looking at compression is down here on the ground at the worm's eye view. Now, most other people, they tell you that, hey, if you can just lag your hands enough and bow your wrist enough through impact, you can get this thing to lean forward. Well, this doesn't necessarily lead to more compression. Now, what are some simple things about compressing the ball? Simple rules are, number one, the faster you swing, the more you're going to compress the ball. Number two, the closer to the center of the club face that you hit the ball, the more you're going to compress it. Number three, this is also given that you have a square club face to the target like this, because if the club face were to come in open, you'll have less compression, and if you were to close it, well, that's another good way to gain compression. Just have the club face really closed at impact. It'll hook off the planet, but you'll really compress it. Therefore, you'll be a good golfer and feel really good about yourself. All right, so there's one basic tenet of compressing a golf ball, and that is the concept of spin loft. So spin loft is a formula. If you haven't heard of this before, spin loft is simply taking the dynamic loft of the club at impact, like this, and then subtracting the angle of attack. So that would give you spin loft. So here's an example with a 4-iron. Let's say this 4-iron has, 17 degrees of dynamic loft. Just throw a random number out, and I'm going to hit down on the ball 2 degrees. Something like that, coming into it. That would be 17 minus 2. That would give me 15 degrees of spin loft. Now, how much spin loft is going to tend to determine how much spin you're going to get. The lower the spin loft, the lower the spin's going to be. But the lower the spin's going to be, the higher the compression's going to be. So if you wanted to really maximize your compression, what you'd be doing is you'd be swinging really fast with, say, a really, really low lofted driver, a 2 or a 1 or a 0 degree lofted driver. And then you'd be getting the most compression possible because you'd have the least amount of spin loft, therefore the least amount of spin. So your shots that are going to spin less, even though they're hitting the sweet spot, are going to be the ones that you compress more, whether or not you lean it forward. Okay, so here's why this example that most other people use in their videos is, hey, you've got to get that forward lean, compress the divot, and this is the only way that you're going to be able to compress the ball. Well, it's not necessarily true. We can use these two colored sticks to take a look at that. Let's say that the yellow stick represents the dynamic loft on this club, and let's set it like that. And then the orange stick is going to represent the angle of attack, something like that. Okay, So right here where my thumb is, right here in this gap, that piece of pie represents your spin loft. You have an upward yellow stick, that's the dynamic loft, which is pretty much built in into every individual club, has kind of a set dynamic loft. Now that can change depending on open or closed club face, but if you are squaring the club face, you're going to have, you're going to have a pretty steady, constant dynamic loft on any given club in your bag. Okay, so the yellow stick represents dynamic loft, and the orange stick is representing angle of attack. Now, here's the trick. If I wanted to get my hands ahead, which basically just means people are going to hit down on the ball. You don't have to, but that's what most people in their attempt to try to compress the ball, lean it forward, are just chopping down into the earth steeper. Now, in that case, watch what happens. You see, as my angle of attack gets steeper, sure, the ball's going to take off lower. But see, the angle, the spin loft does not change. The ball's taken off like a stinger, but my spin loft isn't changed. So the compression in this shot would be exactly the same as if I hit it off a high tee and hit way upwards on the ball like this. You see, and launch the ball straight up. I'd have the same compression on this shot because the spin loft is the same. In other words, the difference between dynamic loft and angle of attack is the same. So just because you are leaning it forward like this, sure, you may be changing the dynamic loft of the club, but if there's an equal increase in angle of attack this way, yeah, your launch angle may get lower, but your compression rate is staying the same. You're not compressing the ball anymore. Now, how would you work this forward idea, the forward leaning shaft? Because certainly good players all have some forward lean at impact on every shot pretty much that they strike off the turf. So how would you do that? You can manipulate the sticks. Now, again, you're not going to change dynamic loft here. And that's kind of built in to each club. But what you could do, if you could figure out, let's say, so here's your normal angle of attack on this iron, downwards a little, while the dynamic loft is up. Okay, now if I could level off that angle of attack like that and not change the dynamic loft, well, there I've just lowered the spin loft altogether. So you can see that the closer I move that angle of attack to the dynamic loft, the more I'm going to compress the ball because the spin loft is less. This piece of pie is getting smaller as I'm squishing it in. Therefore, the spin loft is going to be less, the compression is going to be less. So getting maximum compression on the ball is not quite as simple as telling someone, hey, you just hold on to this left wrist, get that club driving in more like this, and drive it with an increasing angle of attack like that. That's not going to do anything to change the spin loft. Therefore, it's not going to do anything to change the compression. Remember that compression is a direct measure or correlation to spin loft. Spin loft is dynamic loft minus the angle of attack. So if you, again, this 4-iron has got the same, every swing it's got the same dynamic loft built in. If I just chop down on it, sure, I've got maybe a good forward divot and I've got a lot of forward lean, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm compressing it more. Now, for most golfers, getting maximum compression is simply going to be a function of hitting the ball consistently closer to the sweet spot. And that's all most everyone is ever going to have to worry about when it comes to compressing a golf ball. But if you want to get a little more advanced, what you would do is you would have that forward lean, sure, but you've got to change the angle of attack so it's more level while you're maintaining this forward lean. So that comes down to some a little bit trickier, more mechanical parts of the swing that you've got to get right, like the plane of the delivery and the path of the handle. Those are two super key items that are going to allow you to increase the compression by decreasing spin loft on any given club. That would again be forward lean without the corresponding steeper downstrike. Now, if I truly want to get more compression without either swinging harder, hitting it more sweet, or using less dynamic loft, I would have to make some interesting changes to my swing that actually some really good golfers kind of have built in. What I would do is I would have a lot of forward lean this way, but I would be having the feeling that I was actually hitting up on the ball. So let me give that a shot. We'll take a look at the numbers. I don't think I can do it very fast, but I think I can do it. So this is lots of forward lean, but making an attempt to hit up on the ball at the same time with the forward lean. Here we go. Had forward lean on the club more than usual, but I attempted to bottom out behind it and skip up on the ball. Now that involves making the handle of the stick, making sure that it goes up and left very dramatically after impact, not necessarily driving down low this way as a result of a steep angle of attack. So hey, I hope you understand a little bit more about compressing the golf ball than you did at the beginning of the video. I'm Steve for HitItLonger.com. I hope you'll support me. Hit the like button, leave a comment down below. And of course, if I don't see you in the next video, I will see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.